Welcome
This is Quest Unscripted,
a vlog series on trending topics
and Quest solutions related to Active Directory.
Office 365.
Oh, and don't forget Azure AD.
You are here because you have questions.
We're here because we have answers.
I think.
We will address questions we've received from customers.
They experience the same challenges as you.
All with the goal of helping you confidently move
Manage.
and secure your Microsoft environment.
We call the show Quest Unscripted because
Except for this intro.
nothing we say is scripted or rehearsed.
And we're pretty sure you'll notice that right away.
Thanks for joining.
You're welcome.
There we go.
Happy weekend.
I know you like it when I start my meetings like this, Brian.
Absolutely.
So I have a quick question that I get asked quite a bit, and I'm sure you guys do as well. And surprisingly, there's a lot of customers that don't know that this is available to them. Yesterday, I was on a call with one of my customers. I was talking through Change Auditor for Active Directory, and then guy goes, by the way, can we audit Azure Active Directory events? And I'm like, yes, you can. It's part of your license. So I guess the first question, when was it introduced? How do I set it up? Things like that. So Ian, how do we get Azure Active Directory events with our Change Auditor for Active Directory license into Change Auditor?
Yeah, you could pull multiple pieces of Azure information down. It's based off the license you own. The Azure AD information is part of the Change Auditor for Active Directory license. Inside the administration tabs, down under auditing, you can go in and build a template that you assign to a specific agent in your environment. So if you have the AD license, you can pull the Azure AD logs. If you have the logon license, you can pull sign-ins. If you have the SharePoint license, you can pull SharePoint Online in OneDrive down into your on-premise database. And you'll tell, what we do is we create an application that grants the agent the rights to pull the data and put it in and pass it to the coordinator to put into the local database.
And we've been doing that since 6.9.1. So for many different years.
Yeah.
Like 7.1 that we started this.
No, it was actually 6.9.1. But that was with PowerShell we had to do to configure. We had the GUI right around 7.0 or so.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions there before I move on to the next question. That agent is a remote agent that can you take advantage of the existing agent infrastructure for that agent?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, usually what I tell customers is use the machine that's already running AD Connect. That machine's already talking to Azure. So it's got the internet communications capabilities. Your security teams already know that machine should be talking out. It's a perfect candidate. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I just want to make a note. Before you do this, check your SQL sizing, because as soon as you hook this up, you may be bombarded with events, right?
We'll talk about that in just a second, but let me go to my next question. So you said we create an application. So what rights do we need to create that application? And are these rights sticky rights or are only for when we're creating the application?
Well, the person who's setting up the connection needs to be, at the time that they're doing it, they need to be a global administrator so that they have the rights to create the application. But it's only during that. So you could just temporarily have global admin rights, have it create the application, and then remove the global admin rights from the user who was doing it. And it's all the rights within the product are done based off of the application. And, go out to your tenant, you can see the app, you can see all the rights that have been assigned to it.
Okay, Brian, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Anything that we need to worry about, or from a best practices standpoint, anything to consider when we turn this on?
The sizing, I had a customer a couple of years ago. They had Azure AD Connect and they had write back capabilities. So there were certain different objects that would get created on premises. Then Azure AD Connect would create in Azure. There's another different event. And some different attributes were writing back on premises. And I think there was some kind of identity and access management product they were doing where it just kept looping over and over and over again. So as you are implementing it, I always recommend to babysit a little bit the size to see if that type of activity is happening to you. It can indicate some different changes that should be happening in your identity and access management product to ensure that it's not doing some wonky type stuff that should be corrected.
By babysitting, I guess the recommendation is, which is something we recommended yesterday, is turn it on, wait a couple of hours, turn it off, look at the list of events. If you're not seeing a lot, go back, turn it on. But if you're seeing a lot, Azure Active Directory is very noisy. And maybe Ian, you can speak to, do we really need all these events?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, what we discovered yesterday when we worked with a customer, we found there's one event that's kind of a generic, everything that kind of happened
Azure
that created the most events in their database, created in 2 days, like 200 gig of information. There's also other events, and these are all in the Azure monitoring. You'll see them say user created, user modified, user deleted, or user changed. And then this corresponding one for the group. What these turn out to be is every on-premise user, every time there's a change, when AD Connect in the MSOL account grabs it and sees it, it creates that event. So I'm changing a user, and then it's got to get synced out. So I've got to change to the user, and then I've got a user changed event because it was synced out to the cloud as well, which was also creating a lot of events that you could kind of call them a duplicate if you wanted to. You know, it really is something else. Hey, I made a change to the cloud, but you already got that record in there because you have to change the underlying user.
Right, it's telling you the change. All right. Well, I mean, so is there a different way for those customers who absolutely want to keep everything on when we enable Azure? Sort of like an alternative method that we can provide and help with?
Brian, yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, what's in the cloud, I feel should stay in the cloud. You've already become pro cloud once you started using Azure. So we do have SaaS capabilities where we can take the cloud data that's in the 365, keep it into our SaaS. You have to store it on premises, and that can even ingest the different data from your on-premises change order and store in the cloud, and give you the added benefit of anomalous activity detection, where we can see what's normal with your activity and then trigger off different alerts when abnormal activity is happening based upon that different data.
Yeah, and then the cloud can kind of become your long-term storage of all those events. You got a lot of customers who, you know, regulatory, you need 7, 10 years, or people just want to keep it that long. You can keep it in the cloud and then keep your on-premise SQL server much smaller. Say, you know, keep a year or a couple of months on-prem, and you have all the corresponding data in the cloud, so you still get to it. And it's a much easier long-term storage than, you know, going through and having to connect to multiple databases if you're using purge jobs, create archive databases.
Yep, absolutely. Great. Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
You bet.